Number 7. Matthew Joseph MEDLIN. On May the 12th of 2020, a 36-year-old man broke into a snack shack at a railway station in Portland, Oregon. The suspect, later identified as career criminal Matthew Joseph MEDLIN, was spotted by members of transit police, who immediately gave chase. MEDLIN fled into a nearby supermarket and hid himself in the stockroom, but was eventually tracked down and confronted by law enforcement. The man then concealed his hands underneath his jacket and threatened to shoot the officers, who ultimately neutralized him by firing their tasers at him. They subsequently brought the suspect into custody, whereupon they discovered that he hadn't in fact had a weapon in his possession at the time of the break-in, charged with burglary, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest. MEDLIN was booked into the Multnomah County Detention Center on a $16,500 bond. In the incident's aftermath, a series of mugshots from MEDLIN's past arrests surfaced online, with many commenting on the gradual devolution of his physical appearance, as he added tattoos and other markings to his face over time. MEDLIN's initial arrest reportedly occurred on his 18th birthday in 2002. At that time, he had no tattoos and was perceived as a normal-looking person, in stark contrast to his menacing appearance in his 2020 mugshot. Number 6. DUANE Adrian Johnson. At about 5:30 p.m. on Christmas Day 2016, Washington, D.C. actress Trisha McCauley, who most notably appeared in the 2006 dance drama Step Up, got into her two-door Toyota Scion to drive to a holiday party being held at a friend's house in the city. When the 46-year-old never showed up to the party, she was eventually reported missing, and the Metropolitan Police Department promptly set a widespread search effort into motion. Then shortly after 11 p.m. the following night, investigators found McCauley's car parked outside of a pharmacy. Upon entering the store, officers encountered 30-year-old career criminal DUANE Adrian Johnson, who reportedly had the key to McCauley's vehicle in his pocket. The car was subsequently searched, at which point the actress's lifeless body was found in the back seat. Johnson, who also had the victim's credit cards in his possession, was arrested on suspicion of committing her murder. During the ensuing police investigation, it emerged that Johnson had forced his way into McCauley's car while she was driving to her friend's Christmas party. He then proceeded to assault the woman, after which the two became engaged in a physical struggle that resulted in her clothing being ripped and her nose fracturing. Johnson ultimately took the scarf McCauley had been wearing and used it to fatally strangle her. In September of 2017, the man pleaded guilty to first-degree felony murder, and he was consequently sentenced to a prison term of 30 years, which was ordered to be followed by 30 years of supervised release. Number 5. TERRELL Rollins. On April the 23rd of 2020, a vehicle driven by TERRELL Rollins was pulled over by the police in Plant City, Florida, for having excessively dark tint on its windows. 27-year-old Rollins subsequently fled the traffic stop, reportedly reaching speeds of up to 93 miles per hour as he attempted to escape through the nearby neighborhood. Although officers initially chased after the suspect, they ultimately called off their pursuit because of his erratic driving. Shortly thereafter, Rollins ran through a stop sign at a dangerously high velocity and plowed into a car being driven by 53-year-old Amanda Renee Holmes Williams. The latter, a Plant City grandmother who'd been going about her everyday life when the crash occurred, was reportedly killed on impact. Rollins ran from the scene of the accident without stopping to render aid to the victim. He was found hiding in the backyard of a nearby house later that day, and he was then taken into custody on a myriad of charges, including third-degree murder, fleeing and attempting to elude a police officer, and vehicular homicide. In February of 2022, Rollins was found guilty on each of the charges levied against him, resulting in a sentence of 30 years behind bars. It marked the third time he'd been sent to prison during his career as a criminal. Prison records indicated that Rollins had been incarcerated for aggravated battery and other offenses between March of 2015 and August of 2018. Number 4. Olivio D. Leverone. Career criminal Olivio D. Leverone was released from Massachusetts State Prison in early March of 2018 after serving as a cooperating witness for Plymouth County District Attorney Timothy Cruz. Then in October of that same year, the 31-year-old man became the target of surveillance by Brockton police, who'd received a tip that he was planning an armed home invasion along with 2 accomplices. At about 8:30 p.m. on October the 22nd, officers began watching a black BMW driven by LEVERONE. They eventually conducted a motor vehicle stop, whereupon they found items stolen from a house that had been burglarized earlier that evening inside of LEVERONE's car. The latter and his accomplices were arrested on charges of receiving stolen property, to which they each pleaded not guilty during their arraignments the following day. LEVERONE resurfaced on the radar of New England law enforcement in February of 2021 when it was reported that he'd been involved in a deadly shooting outside of a car wash in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. The victim, named as Julius Bell, was found suffering from a critical gunshot wound to the head. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was ultimately pronounced dead a short time later. A preliminary investigation into the matter uncovered that the shooting had been precipitated by an argument between multiple people, although initial reports didn't specify whether Bell had been involved or had only been a bystander. LEVERONE faced several additional charges in connection to the incident, including murder, conspiracy to commit assault with a dangerous weapon, discharging a firearm during a violent crime, and conspiracy to carry a pistol without a license. As of the latest available updates, the career criminal was still awaiting the commencement of his case's legal proceedings. Number 3. DESHUR early. Shortly after 10 p.m. on April the 21st of 2017, a police officer was dispatched to a parking garage overlooking the Florida State University Collegetown apartment complex at 815 West Madison Street in Tallahassee. Upon his arrival, the officer reported he found a male suspect performing lewd acts on himself near the garage's north guard wall. The man was ordered to put his hands up, but instead began walking away from the officer before urinating on the ground in between 2 parked vehicles. Upon his subsequent arrest, the suspect, identified as DESHUR early, told the police that he'd gone to the garage to urinate because all of the nearby businesses had already closed for the night. In the wake of the incident, it was reported that while Early had been performing the lascivious acts at the garage, he'd been peering through the open window of a neighboring apartment, in which he could see a woman changing clothes. Early was consequently taken to Leon County Jail on charges of voyeurism and indecent exposure. The 34-year-old man's criminal history reportedly went back to the year 2000 when he was arrested in connection to armed burglary and kidnapping charges. Today's topic was requested by Kristen Nelson. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. ALLAN JETT. The police in Cranston, Rhode Island, received reports of a series of break-ins at local businesses committed during the nighttime hours between January the 10th and January the 17th of 2022. According to subsequent reports, investigators quickly determined that the burglaries had been carried out by a single male suspect who had approached the businesses on a bicycle before gaining entry by smashing through their glass storefronts. After pilfering money from the cash registers, the man would flee back to his nearby residence prior to the arrival of police. Detectives ultimately identified the alleged thief as 64-year-old ALLAN JETT, a local resident with a lengthy criminal track record dating all the way back to 1979. The Cranston Police Department executed a search warrant of Jett's home, where they seized evidence linking him to a total of 6 break-ins. During their sweep of the residence, Jett reportedly became uncooperative and struck an officer in the face, at which point he was taken into custody. He faced several charges, including multiple counts of breaking and entering a business with the intent to commit a felony, as well as simple assault on a police detective. Prior to his 2022 arrest, Jett had most recently spent time in Rhode Island's adult correctional institutions after pleading no contest to charges of felony breaking and entering in May of 2005. Number 1. ASSAMAD NASH. New York City resident Christina Una Lee returned to her 6th-floor apartment on Christie Street in Chinatown in the early morning hours of February the 13th of 2022. As was captured by the building surveillance cameras, the 35-year-old woman, a creative producer for the online music platform Splice, was followed inside by a hooded man wearing a gray sweatshirt. Minutes later, a neighbor contacted the authorities after hearing Lee repeatedly shriek, "Help me! Call 911!" NYPD officers responded to the scene and came upon the suspect, ASSAMAD Nash, covered in blood. The 25-year-old man, later identified as a homeless career criminal, allegedly tried to flee by way of the fire escape before barricading himself in the apartment. The NYPD's emergency service unit ultimately forced their way inside, at which point they found Nash hiding under a bed. Officers also discovered a bloody knife that was determined to have been used to brutally attack Lee, who was found in her bathtub, bleeding from multiple wounds to the body. The homeowner was ultimately pronounced dead shortly before 6 a.m., roughly an hour and a half after she'd been first accosted by Nash, who was taken into custody on murder charges. It subsequently emerged that he had an extensive criminal rap sheet dating back to 2012 that included arrests for petty crimes and robbery, the latter of which investigators believe to have been the primary motive behind the deadly home invasion. Nash was reportedly scheduled to appear in court on July the 18th of 2022. Thanks for watching. Would you rather do a 2-week internship for a career criminal or drive without a license for an entire year? Let us know in the comments section below.